Hello and welcome everyone, it is me, Level, awesome to do back for you with another video. And today I wanted to do a small little combo guide on the Beetrooper insect link list that I have posted last week. Since it's been requested, and I think it's also like a pretty good thing to have on hand, especially now with a couple new cards introduced to the strategy in the Ragnaraika Links. I'm going to start with the main 2 3-card combos, which I think are the really big strength of the stack. Include the 2 2-card combos that I do like going for on the stack, which are just, the 3-card combos without a discard and follow-up and 1 less disruption. So that's something to keep in mind, but I think having, solid 2-card lines to fall back on, especially in a list that is this heavy on hand traps, is like a bit better when you're, often in positions where you open 2 to 3 non-engine. So yeah. We're going to start with essentially the bread and butter of this deck, which is going to be Resonance Insect and an Insect Extender. For the purposes of the discard, Nibiru is going to be here, but more on the discard later. You're going to go ahead and start a combo by normal summoning that Resonance Insect, of course, and using your Insect Extender. This could be a Pin the Bullseye, a Scale Bomber, maybe a Dream Cicada if you're playing that. Just, any Insect Extender realistically will do it. We're going to put these 2 into an Armor Horn and use the effect of Resonance Insect for the first time. We're going to say that line quite a couple times here. Grabbing a Doom Dozer, which is, one of the main difference between, the Resonance Insect and Retaliating Sea Lines in the stack. Resonance Insect lines do gravitate to grabbing Doom Dozer a lot earlier than the Retaliating Sea Line. Not only because it goes quite well with it, but also because it's a good way to trigger the Banish effect. On the Banish of the Resonance Insect, we are going to send a Goki Pole to the graveyard, which we are then going to utilize to grab another Resonance Insect to our hand, since we do have that additional normal summon off of our Armor Horn. Using that to put the Resonance Insect on the board here, going into Insector Picofalena. I'm going to Picofalena here, discarding Nibiru and targeting the Armor Horn. And then we are going to Resonance Insect. I've messed this up, actually. Usually I like putting the Resonance Insect search as a chain link 1, because you're not chain blocking Picofalena anyways. It's still getting impermed in a worst case scenario. But you could use the Picofalena to chain block the Resonance Insect, so you're definitely getting that add. You can go for a Sting Lancer here, which is going to be our first layer of disruption. And off the Picofalena, we are going to ping another Resonance Insect. Usually this is a situation in which you could, if your discard was an insect monster, potentially shuffle back, but more on that later. We are then going to take these 2 monsters here and turn them into Invincible Atlas, triggering the Resonance Insect for the 3rd time here. Grab us a copy of Mighty Neptune, and then we are going to use this copy of Armor Horn here. We do have a way to put this back. If you put it back earlier, no biggie. No real issues there. As mentioned, if your discard was an insect, you could have shuffled Goki Pole, Doom Dozer, and your discard back into the deck, drawn another card of the Picofalena. Here we are going to banish the Goki Pole, a Resonance Insect, and I think we'll just banish the Picofalena. Not a whole lot has been lost there. Bring back the Armor Horn here, trigger the Resonance Insect effect to put a Sting the Poison into the graveyard. And then, since we have 3 banished insects that we can put back into our main deck, we're going to put back 2 Resonance Insects and a Goki Pole. I do like, prioritize returning, 1 or 2 offs and good normal summons that your deck has off of the Mighty Neptune, which is fairly important, I'd say. Then going to go Invincible Atlas here, tributing off the Mighty Neptune to grab a Beetrooper from the deck, which is simply going to be the 2nd copy of Sting Lancer that you still should have in your deck. Otherwise, yeah, this is getting a bit rough. You can definitely discard a 2nd Sting Lancer if you draw it early off a Picofalena, and then shuffle that back so you have one to summon here. So that's something that isn't a complete deal breaker if you find yourself in situations where you do open that. And then finally, just, this is the old setup, I'd say, that this deck previously did. If you got to go full combo, I'm going to set up the counter trap here. And once our opponent's turn rolls around, we get to Seraphim Papillion, bring back a low-level insect from the graveyard, which is going to be the Sting the Poison. That is going to grab us an Arbalest. Since this is a 3-card combo, and you potentially have, another draw at your disposal, if you discarded an insect monster, you do have like 2 to 3 unknown cards left in hand here, which could be hand traps, could be additional engine pieces. You'll see when you're playing this in practice. But what we've realistically ended on is we have a monster negate in Sting the Poison. This guy contribute another insect to target a monster on the field and negate its effects until the end of the turn. We have Beetrooper Fly and Sting, which is a monster negate while you control a Beetrooper monster. For this, we have the Invincible Atlas up here. That is a 3k untargetable and indestructible guy. And we have Sting Lancer as an archetypal DD Crow here. This guy can put a monster in your opponent's graveyard and an insect monster in your graveyard back to the bottom of that respective player's deck, and then special summon himself and grab you some follow-up, because you can add a Beetrooper spell trap, which in a lot of cases will be the, let's look for it real quick, the Beetrooper field spell in formation, which, is just a reborn for a Beetrooper each turn, but you take damage equal to its attack, so that's something to keep in mind. But yeah, with that, we have the first 3-card combo out of the way. And I'll see you guys with the Retaliating Sea version of this. And here we are with the Retaliating Sea version. This, once again, starts very similar. You are going to normal summon an Earth Insect and then use your extender of choice. I don't even remember if I forgot it in the first line, but if it's pin, remember to burn for 200. We are then going to go ahead and make an Armor Horn and trigger the Retaliating Sea in graveyard, adding us Resonance. This is kind of why I do quite like even the Ragnaraika Link 3 without a target in the deck. Because it does smooth out some lines incredibly well, being seen here, as it's a very easy way to trigger the Resonance Insect here without, going through your Seraphim Papillion, which is quite nice. We are going to go ahead and grab a copy of Mighty Neptune here, because afterwards we will go ahead and use the Armor Horn a bit early, but these lines usually play a bit tighter on the resources, as you're not generating as much value, since you're not, triggering the non-once per turn of Resonance Insect multiple times a turn. We do get a dump here, and just as always, that dump is going to be a Goki Pole. The Goki Pole here is going to grab us an Assault Roller. From here, I usually like to, banish for the Assault Roller first, so I do have, the Goki Pole to recycle off of the Mighty Neptune. As mentioned at the start, usually recycle 1-offs, 2-offs, good normal summons of this first. And then we are going to go ahead and make a copy of Infector Picofalena. Picofalena once again going ahead, discarding our trusty discard in Nibiru the Primal Being, targeting Mantis Monk here to equip a Resonance Insect. Once again, if your discard was an insect here, you could start, shuffling back those guys. Sadly, going to have to, I guess you could say, almost waste some link material here, as we are making a link 4 with a link 2 and a link 3, triggering the Resonance effect that we just let hit the graveyard for a Doom Dozer. And then we are going to go ahead and banish Resonance Insect and Assault Roller for the Doom Dozer. I'm going to use the Resonance Insect here to dump the Sting the Poison that we've sent last line. Going to use Atlas here, sending a Doom Dozer, specialing a Beetrooper from the deck, which is going to be the Sting Lancer. Sting Lancer's effect will trigger here to grab us that counter trap. And since I've not linked off the Picofalena and I do still have a couple insects on grave, I can at least try and go for that effect. This does of course remove the Ragnaraika Link 3 from the graveyard, which is quite unfortunate, but it's another draw which is just kind of nice to have. And then we are going to go ahead on Seraphim Papillion. Once again, we've set up the counter trap on our opponent's turn, as I've shown earlier. We can use the Seraphim Papillion to bring back Sting the Poison, which is not only a monster negate, but also grabs us follow-up in Battle Wasp, Arbalest, the Rapid Fire. But yeah, with that out of the way, this was the Retaliating Sea 3-card combo. Let's move on to those 2-card combos. And with that, we move into the 2-card combos. As you've seen, Retaliating Sea lines are a bit tighter on the resources. A disruption less, but we did get a draw for that. But now moving into the 2-card combos, starting once again with Resonance Insect. We're going to go ahead, use the Resonance Insect. I did swap the extender for this one. Again, this could also be a Pin the Bullseye. Just going to simply go ahead and turn those two into an Armor Horn, use the Resonance Insect here to grab myself a copy of Doom Dozer. Going to go ahead, use the Doom Dozer here to banish 2. Use the Resonance Insect here to dump the Goki Pole, and since I have not used that additional normal summon, I can go ahead and grab another Resonance Insect. Really nice to have. We are going to go ahead, use the Armor Horn here to put that Resonance Insect onto the field. And we are then going to turn those into the Ragnaraika Link 3, triggering the Resonance Insect in the process, grabbing a Mighty Neptune. As mentioned, these 2-card lines are usually for, hands where you do find yourself in a situation where you do open quite a lot of non-engine. These are more like Plan B lines. I guess you could think of them that way. Going to go ahead and then turn those two into a good old Invincible Atlas. And from here, I believe, yes, we should have 3 insects that we can banish in the graveyard. So we're going to use the Armor Horn here, banish these 3, put that back on the board. Once again, trigger the Resonance Insect here. Personally, do like dumping a... I think I skipped past it. Yes, a Scout Buggy here. Since if you already have, access to Beetrooper formation here, either in a Sting Lancer or, even better, in Beetrooper formation itself, you can quite easily just slap down the formation, pay 1,000 essentially to grab Scout Buggy and another Scout Buggy here and add a Cicada King to this board, which is a quite nice piece of interaction that you easily set up with this. But it's also not bad on the follow-up if you, again, have access to formation. This is something that potentially gives you a good bit of follow-up as, Scout Buggy, bringing back Scout Buggy from the graveyard already presents you with 2 bodies of Link material, which is quite nice. We're then going to go ahead and use the Mighty Neptune here. I am going to recycle this Doom Dozer, a Resonance Insect, and Goki Pole. Mainly, getting those one-offs back into the deck and then, putting that Mighty Neptune on the board. Then going to use the effect of the Ragnaraika Link 3 here, bringing it back. And since we now have a 3 and a 2 on the board, it's not a Synchro Summon, but you're still adding things up. And something funny you can do here, since Stag Sovereign also has the Ragnaraika effect, you can tribute them for Invincible Atlas, pull out a Sting Lancer here, and then use the Sting Lancer to grab Lion Sting. Kind of unrelated note, but similar to a lot of the lines, if you do have like a level 5 search, for like where you usually search like a Mighty Neptune, a Doom Dozer, if you already have those in hands, you can of course always use that search on a Sting Lancer. Gives you an additional layer of disruption and also, adds a whole lot of follow-up to your lines. Yeah, and with, an insect on the board that we can return to the deck, we're going to use that Stag Sovereign in the graveyard, bring him right back, and end on Fly and Sting and Stag Sovereign. Now, what does Stag Sovereign do except being a big guy? If your opponent is special summons a monster from the deck or extra deck, you can pop 2 monsters on the field. This doesn't target, which is quite huge. And yeah, it's a good piece of disruption. Also, like, a pretty decent card into Nibiru. In general, the Ragnaraikas kind of help with that on like hands where you do have quite a bit of gas left in the tank. Oftentimes, you can kind of, threaten like a end of main to your opponent will try to nib you to get at least some value out of that card, and then still have a bit of gas. can easily put like an extender on the board, be it, Mighty Neptune you have left over, a Doomdozer you have left over, and put a Ragnaraika Stag Sovereign on the board again, making it not in the hand. But that's something I'd only recommend if you've got a lot of non-engine hand. But yeah, with that out of the way, let's move into the Retaliating Sea version of this line. Well, and here we are with Retaliating Sea and our insect extender of choice. Normal summoning that Retaliating Sea here. Special summoning a Scale Bomber and, very easily turning those two to Armor Horn. A Retaliating Sea will just directly grab us Resonance Insect here, and after this point, this is going to look very familiar to a lot of you. This deck is fairly non-linear, I'd say, as in a lot of cases you are kind of just, putting bodies on the board, turning those into links, and finding your way through, the multiple, one-offs that this deck runs, kind of toolboxing through those depending on what you need. We do have 3 in the grave, so I believe the angle. I'm going to go ahead, use the Armor Horn here, banish all 3. Again, if you already have the Mighty Neptune in your grip, you can easily use this opportunity to, put those guys into a, use that search to grab a Sting Lancer. I'm going to send the Goki Pole here for Assault Roller. And then we are going to turn these two into Stag Sovereign. From here, once again, this is going to look fairly familiar. Using the Assault Roller here to that Goki Pole into the banished pile, where, we can first of all use a Ragnaraika Link in the graveyard, put back the Assault Roller, and then we can use the Mighty Neptune here, put back 3 of our banished cards, and suddenly we do have Link Force material on field. Once again, tripping off the Stag Sovereign, it's a bit greedy. You might not want to do this if you suspect your opponent might have another hand trap. But as mentioned at the start, these like 2 card lines are very much a plan B in this deck. I think the deck excels at very solid 3 card setups that offer you a lot of follow-up, which, these 2 card lines might not always do. As you're seeing, usually you're left with, no follow-up at all, or at least no guaranteed follow-up, unless, draw specific pieces of the line, or, already have like a normal summon in your hand. But yeah, with that off the way, I think I'll do like 1 or 2 test hands and maybe wrap this thing up with like some general thoughts on the lines for this deck. Well, this is looking pretty darn good. This is fairly unbeatable. I think we'll just go through a line that I've even if I've shown earlier. It's just nicer to click through these things in like a realistic setting where you kind of have, the multiple cards in hand. And I don't need to attach 3 ifs and or buts to multiple scenarios in the line. Once again, grabbing a Doomdozer here, which is immediately getting utilized here to banish those 2. And then we are going to Resonance Insect here, sending the Goki Pole to grab another Resonance Insect for our troubles. We're going to use the Armor Horn here, putting that Resonance Insect on the board. Then going ahead, turning those to a Pico Falaner. I'm not going to do it the correct way, which is going to be that we are going to Resonance 1. Pico 2, as mentioned at the start, this is a minor optimization, but having, the protection against like Ash Imperm in this specific situation is kind of nice, because this way only your Pico Falaner can get Impermed, which is going to be not great, but it could be worse. We're going to very much no-brainer this one, just equip a Resonant Insect here. I do believe we grab a Mighty Neptune here, as we do have another add off of the Resonant Insect later down the line. Yeah, we're getting 3 insects into the graveyard and anyways, so as mentioned at the start, if you're going through these lines, no fear, as soon as you have 4 insects in the grave. Oh, that's very lovely. You don't mind drawing that, actually. Even in general, you're not really hating drawing the Fly Instinct turn 1. As usually, it makes for a pretty good discard for, you know, your Pico Falena, as it recycles itself in the end phase. So, you know, no worries there. You just need to have an insect in the grave, which is not the hardest thing in the world for this deck to do. Simply going to go ahead here, use the Armor Horn. As you can see, you know, exactly 3 insects in the grave. Going to go ahead and then go Resonance 1 and Resonance 2. A very crazy chain link. The fact that they printed this in like 2014 without a hard once per turn is insane. Absolutely insane. Second dump here, just a Scout Buggy. I usually like dumping these two. Sting is a pretty good dump overall, but Scout Buggy is also pretty good because of, you know, the interaction with Beetrooper formation, which can be quite handy. I would like those Resonance Insects back in the deck where they belong, so I'm going to use this Mighty Neptune here. Put that on the board before tributing the Mighty Neptune off for the Invincible Atlas. Invincible Atlas once again grabbing Sting Lancer here. Not a whole lot of surprises there. Sting Lancer is able to grab us formation here, which is quite nice. If this is a situation you find yourself in where you have another insect in hand, this could be, you know, a certified landing moment, which is kind of cute. There's not like a whole lot of like mainline combos where you do want to search landing. Often landing is something you can search, or you can just hard open as like a one-off. That's just kind of cool in some situations where you do find yourself with a Beetrooper name and an insect in hand and maybe no other plays, or, you know, as something you can smack down as an extender after, you know, maybe a Resonance Insect line gets stopped. I'm going to go ahead and grab the formation here. Oh, we've done the illegal thing and dumped a Scout Buggy and have access to formation. God bless. Going to go ahead, turn Armor Horn and Sting Lancer here into Seraphim Pavilion. You know the drill with this guy by now. We have a Sting the Poison in the graveyard, so, you know, what's coming back. But as, you know, mentioned, we have dumped a Scout Buggy, and as I've kind of mentioned with that Resonance Insect 2-card combo, if you find yourself in a situation where you do get to dump the Scout Buggy, have not used the effect here, you can, you know, crown your end board, I'd say, with a king, which is quite nice. I do think you summon this guy in defense just to really make sure this guy is just not getting run over. But I think you can also just summon him in attack. Doesn't matter. Personally, just like, okay, you know, if your opponent tries to play, you can just swap him to attack, and from there, you know, what happens, happens. Otherwise, yeah, set the Fly and Sting here, passing turn, and once our opponent's turn rolls around, Seraphim Pavilion will once again trigger here to bring back a Sting the Poison. Funnily enough, Cicada King also gives you a second way to bring back Sting the Poison here. It just requires your opponent to start playing. You know, Sting the Poison will once again trigger here, grabbing you an Arbalest, and we are working with, damn, a lot. This is quite a crazy opener. I think this is far from, you know, the usual you can expect from this deck. But it is a fairly solid setup. It's a lot of monster interaction, which is, you know, I guess the deck's main shortcoming, next to, you know, its weakness to Nibiru. And, you know, those targeted negation hand traps, because those link 2s, you really want to resolve them. You don't have a lot of interaction with the back row, because this is a monster negate, this is a monster negate, this is a monster negate, and this shuffles monsters back from the graveyard. Where's the spell and trap interaction? There's not a whole lot of that, so that's something to maybe keep in mind into, you know, back row heavier matchups, where you might want to have, you know, some things in your side deck that can help you like deal with those a bit easier. But with that, I think I'll do another test hand, and if it's not completely unplayable, I think I'll start wrapping this one up. This is pretty solid. This is, funnily enough, a line where Beetrooper landing does come in quite handy. Post-editing Laval here, because I absolutely fumbled this line in the initial draft for this, which is why we're doing this with a replay. I have 2 versions of this, because I did try a couple, you know, different lines afterwards, and I don't want to record this while I'm, you know, watching football later. So let's get into it. Still bleeding Normal Summon Resonance Insect Cruise Saturn here with the Sting Lancer and the Sting the Poison. going into an Armor Horn, triggering Resonance Insect for a Mighty Neptune. This was my initial suspicion after, we grabbed the formation off of the Cruise Saturn. Using formation to bring back Armor Horn to get into a Stag Sovereign early, which is pretty nice. Do like doing that. And if you have the additional extenders, this is, a fairly decent MPO piece to get into early. Putting an Assault Roller onto the board here and a Mighty Neptune that I set up to go into a Pico Falena here, into a Invincible Atlas, and then we're doing, the same kind of shuffle that you've seen in the 2-card lines, where you Invincible Atlas, Tribute or Stag Sovereign, summon a Sting Lancer from the deck. The Sting Lancer grabs you that counter trap, and the Stag Sovereign then is able to put back the Sting Lancer to put himself back on the board. Realistically, what have we ended on here? We are sitting on, Invincible Atlas, which is an untargetable, indestructible idiot. Stag Sovereign will, be a pop 2 once our opponent tries to summon a monster from their main deck or extra deck. Flying Sting is a sick monster negate here, and we have Sting Lancer as an archetype DD Crow, and we technically do have a pretty good bit of follow-up off of this Assault Roller that we, I think, hard drew off of the Pico Falena, since we can banish the Resonance Insect, and then immediately use the Resonance Insect to dump a Goki Pole, and then just grab another Arbalest for the follow-up, which is pretty nice, because even if that Arbalest is getting hit with a hand trap, you are in a position where you can make a Link to pretty huge. On top of all that, we still have formation on the board, which is kind of nice. Makes follow-up turns a whole lot easier. Going to put up an image of what I initially ended on, and I think you can already tell that this is a much better setup with not, necessarily the amount of follow-up that you'd expect, but definitely a lot better in terms of the end board that you're putting up, I think. But with that out of the way, we are going to take a look at a second way that I played this line, that I think I'd realistically prefer if I was actually playing through this in, a common environment. And with that, we have the line in front of us again. This same opener is going to produce another different end board. Once again, leading Resonance Insect. The start is pretty much the same across these lines. Going Cruise Saturn here, grabbing a Mighty Neptune off the Cruise Saturn, actually. Triggering the Resonance Insect for a Doom Dozer here, using that Armor Horn here to get that Retaliating C on the board. Triggering the banished Resonance Insect we banish off of the Doom Dozer to Goki Pole for an Assault Roller. Famous, name a more iconic duo, I guess. Go ahead and equip off of the Pico Falena that we just made here. Shuffle back, draw 1. Goki Pole's not a bad draw. If you have a good way to pitch it, or, just like getting it on the board, linking it off still gets you a ton of value. Since the Goki Pole still grabs you like Retaliating C, Resonance Insect, or Assault Roller, which is a pretty good selection of monsters you could be searching off of this. Getting into an Invincible Atlas here early, putting a Sting Lancer on the board in the process, grabbing the counter trap, and in our opponent's turn, forgot to like turn off, opponent's hand, but yeah. We get to sting the poison here. Now, what are we working with here? Well, of course, working with a lot more cards in hand. We do have Arbalest off of the Sting, and we have, Resonance at Goki Pole, which is, a lot of normal summons, but I think for this deck specifically, that is rarely the issue. You do have a very easy way to get an additional normal summon in Armor Horn, and especially once, get to, that turn 3, turn 4, where your opponent might not have, the right pieces of disruption left anymore. You can definitely make your way, make those pushes happen more easily, where you can, resolve an Armor Horn and get those additional normal summons out of your hands. So rarely a big deal. Papillon for the Sting, pretty good piece of disruption. It's basically, a walking imperm. We have the Flying Sting still on the field and a Sting in hand that is probably going to grab us a Beetrooper formation once our opponent starts putting stuff into the graveyard. Potentially stuff we can disrupt with it. Which, formation also makes for great follow-up as well. But yeah, with that out of the way, I just hope this was helpful to some of you guys. I know one of you guys requested this in the comment section of the initial video, which is why I sat myself down, trying to put together like a reasonable amount of, the important 3- and 2-card combos, which I think you should be well aware of when playing this. Again, I think this deck's great strengths are the very solid 3-card combos that give you a good bit of layered disruption, because you're often ending with, something in the monster zone, something in the spell trap zone, and something in your hand, but a boatload of follow-up. I absolutely adore the resource loop of this deck, how it is able to, just keep going over the course of multiple turns. And the Ragnaraika Links do help with that a lot, as you're able to, you know, play out of the graveyard a lot more easily with, you know, a Link 3 body or just this big, you know, Link 5 Chungus that's just absolutely massive, which is very, very nice. So yeah, with that out of the way, let me know in the comments down below if you found this helpful in shape or form. Be glad to hear about that. But maybe also let me know some tips and tricks so, you know, people that get to this video can also look in the comments section and maybe find, you know, other input from different people to kind of make this a more, you know, educational resource for the broader. But yeah, with all that out of the way, thank you guys. God damn it. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll be seeing you guys again next time. But until then, goodbye.